Welcome back to Cam's Classics. So we are working again on the Oldsmobile as we showed you. We have it in paint. We're ready to start doing the electrical wiring, but before we do that, just so you know, when you start building a car like this, you kind of run into compounding problems. So there's certain things that have to go on before other things, and so our goal is to get the headliner in this before Dad heads south. But to do that, we have to get the interior wiring up to the dome lights, and then there's two lights in the two rear cell panels we got to get. We want to put the tank in, but we got to get the wiring back for the sending unit, and we are putting an electric fuel pump, so we need to get the wiring for the fuel pump back there as well. Until we get that, we can't run the fuel line up to here because we don't know where the pump's got to go, so it's just a compounding issue. So what we're going to do is there's a few things under the hood we need to do before we can do some wiring. So we need to put the distributor back in, carburetor back in, alternator on, put our belts on, because all that has to be wired in. So we need to know where they're going to be so that we can run the wires to them and have nice clean wiring. So what we're going to do first, we'll show you how to do this. We're going to put the distributor in. Okay, so the first thing we got to do, know where your number one spark plug is, and that is this one. And go ahead and pull it out. So as you saw already, we did have this running, but when we went to put it in, the way the distributor was sitting, just checking, the spark plug does look really good. Just making sure we didn't have like a lean condition or a excessive fuel condition, so it looks really good, so we're good there. But when we went to set the engine in, the distributor vacuum advance was pointed towards the firewall. There wasn't enough room, so we had to turn it to get the engine in here. So that means we have to reset our timing, so we'll show you how you do that. Okay, so on these old engines on the front, there is a main bolt, and using a socket that fits that and a breaker bar, and what you got to do, take your finger and put it in the spark plug hole. And what you're looking for is the compression stroke. Okay, so a little air is coming past my finger there. This is a little easier with two people, but Dad's on the camera today, so I don't know if you can hear that, but air just come out. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take a screwdriver. Just set that in there. And so what I'm doing is I can feel the piston coming up, but the other thing I can do is there is my line. So on these, there's the center one is 0, so that's top dead center. This one is your one's retard, one's I don't remember the other term, but it's where your distributor is going to hit in terms of top dead center versus what degrees. That's going to be approximately 8 degrees. That's where I want it to be for initial fire up. We can go ahead and put our spark plug back in because we now have the engine sitting where we want it. These are spark plug sockets, so they have a little O-ring in them, so you kind of have to wiggle them to get them off. Now we've got that, I'm going to just go ahead and climb in there with the distributor. So So what I want to do is I want to set my distributor so it's just probably a little back. Just to give us the clearance on this side. And that's not quite where I want it. Turn it just a little bit, and what you're doing is lining up gears. Okay. So what I'm looking for is I want this rotor pointing right here to my #1 spark plug. That's the correct way to set these. And I'm ready to grab my cap. Actually, before we do that, we'll put this on. So this is our distributor clamp hold down. Want to make sure we're sitting down on there, which we are. These are always kind of a pain, so you can see the throttle's kind of in the way just a bit. And I can kind of come from this back side into it. And I'm going to tighten this just a little bit. I don't want it too tight. I want to be able to move this so that we can adjust it once we get everything all set. But I don't want a lot of movement in it. So I still have a little play there, but we're tightened down pretty good. I'm still basically pointed to my #1. And climb out.
Let me walk over and get your distributor cap and stuff rather than climb in and out. I'll move to this other side so that I can reach this stuff.
Okay, so on these HEI distributors, you can see there's a little tab. And in your distributor, there's another little tab. So what I'm going to do is, this will kind of go on and off a couple times where I'm getting it set where it needs to fit. Okay, so that's where it needs to go. Okay, so we're going to pull that off and twist it just a hair. So what I'm running up against is I'm kind of hitting right in between these two. So I need to almost have a little bit more twist to get this one, but I'd actually really like it on this one. So we'll go ahead, we'll pull that back out. And this is just trial and error. There's not really any foolproof method. As you can see, when I pull this out, the distributor turns. So I know if I want it to go just a hair more, I just got to turn that just a little bit. Then you just kind of wiggle that. in. That one didn't come back around. So it's just a small, what you're doing is syncing up the gear, mashing the gears on the camshaft. So I'm going to take my cap and kind of see where I'm at now before I put the clamp back on it. Okay, I like that right there. So what that'll have me do is this will be my #1 spark plug right that's right here next to this. That's a good way to do it. So we will drop that back in here. See, it's still got a little play, but it's pretty tight. So then we can hook our wire up. And this has a groove in it. It can only go on one way. I'll just tuck that down there. And we need our flat screwdriver that I already have here. These have 4 clamps on them, and it's just a kind of an L-shaped wire that just twists into a spot. They hit a spot where they stop, and that's where that goes. So we are now ready for our spark plug wires. And here's what we're going to do. So I went ahead, pulled up the firing order in rotation. So as you can see, the distributor, based on which side of the camshaft is which direction. So most of your Chevys sit on this side of the camshaft. They spin in a clockwise direction. Your Oldsmobile Pontiac, they sit on the driver's side of the camshaft and they spin the opposite rotation or counterclockwise. So we got our firing order here. What I'm going to do is start here. So I know 2 and 1 are probably going to be my longest wires, with 2 being the longest. So what I'll do, grab them all here at the same end. And as you can see, that one's probably 2. . Pull that out. Go to the one that's probably one. And that's probably this one. And your 4 is going to be probably this one. Now if you have one that's shorter, one that's longer, because the way these work, they're not always going to land right where they need to go. So for example, 6 need to be longer than 3. We can move those around based after we get them. So right now I'm just kind of doing it based off of length. So of course these ones are going to be longer that are on this side because the distributor's offset to that side. I do know that these last two, if they have a different end, they're my back two. I do know that for certain. And I do know that the shorter one probably is going to be on this side. So I'm just kind of having these out of the way while we get them ready to go. And they do have, you know, you can fill them click. You want to make sure they're on to that point. And we are all on. Let's get our firing order back on. Okay, so one I do know is this one. And we're going to go with 8. You can see that one is a bit of a stretch. 4. Okay, so this is where you run into that issue. So what I'm going to do is, this one is 3. I'll kind of skip that one and see if I have a longer one at the end. For example, this number 1 is fairly long. I think we can just swap them. Yeah. That one's plenty long for 1. That'll give us this longer one for 4. So it's kind of just a game playing to find what you need. 3, 6. 5. So that one's a little short. 6 was a little long. So kind of just a game you got to play to get them to fit where they'll go. They're made for this engine, but they don't say which one goes where. Pretty sure it's 572. That's the common GM pattern. But just make sure. 7 and 2. And there is a retaining ring. We'll put that on We have a little play there, which is good.